Alright guys, so I apologize if my audio is bad. Now, the reason why is because I actually broke the USB to my microphone that I bring with me when I'm away from home. And as you can see here, I'm obviously away from home. So bear with me if the audio is too bad. Hopefully I can replace the USB in a few days, but who knows, right? Who knows? Regardless, the show must still go on. And today we have Mr. Ai Weiwei, who is a Chinese activist, artist, and former political prisoner of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, this guy, he's very, very, very brave to say the least, as he's spoken out against China and their authoritarian state. Now, he's left China, right? And now he's basically an artist. He writes a lot of books. He does a lot of activism to try to push back against what's going on there in China in regards to the authoritarianism and the communism there. Now, he did an interview with PBS, and PBS basically tried to take a passage that he wrote in which he essentially compared Trump's communication in regards to his tweets to how the leaders during the Cultural Revolution in China would communicate with the people, right? And PBS tried to use this as an opportunity to take a swing at Trump and to call Trump an authoritarian, right? To ask Mr. Ai Weiwei, is Trump an authoritarian? And the answer to this question is like one of the biggest self-owns of the media, because they continuously try to call Trump a authoritarian when there's actually really, in my opinion, very little evidence that he is an authoritarian compared to what we're seeing today, right? Actually, today in the United States, right? And Ai Weiwei's answer to her question, in my opinion, is hilarious considering how they tried to tee up him to start talking trash about Trump. But without further ado, I actually want you guys to watch the clip of this interview, and then I'm gonna give my commentary for them. Take a look.
Relevant is political.
The son of a poet, persecuted during Mao's Cultural Revolution, artist Ai Weiwei went from helping to create the iconic Bird's Nest Stadium for the 2008 Summer Olympics to becoming a captive of the Chinese government.
The prominent artist Ai Weiwei was taken into custody just this past Sunday.
The conditions you were held under, can you say anything about that?
No, I cannot say anything.
He's taken on tyranny in Beijing and beyond with his art and his activism, identifying each of the thousands of children who perished in the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, then representing them in his art, smashing symbols of Chinese history and creating strong messages about what he observes in the world. Did you see it later?
No, I was in detention.
What does Ai Weiwei say now?
In your book, you're describing the directives of Mao Zedong during the Cultural Revolution that would be distributed publicly every night. And then you write, this is your quote, they served a function similar to Donald Trump's late night tweets while in office. They were the direct communication of a leader's thoughts to his devoted followers, enhancing the sanctity of his authority. So, do you see Donald Trump as an authoritarian?
I don't, if you're authoritarian, you have to have a system in supporting you. You cannot just be an authoritarian by yourself. But certainly in United States, with today's condition, you can easily have an authoritarian. In many ways, you're already in the authoritarian state. You just don't know it.
How so?
Many things happens today in US can be compared to Cultural Revolution in China.
Like what?
Like people trying to be unified in certain political correctness. That is very dangerous.
Guys, I find it hilarious how Trump's name is always in the mainstream media's mouth, right? Trump's name is always in their mouth for whatever reason. And the dude is not in office, right? And this interviewer here tried to tee up the question of, is Donald Trump an authoritarian because of a comparison between how Mao Zedong communicated with his followers and how Trump communicated with his followers on Twitter, right? And again, I find it fascinating because instead of asking him to elaborate on that, like, what do you mean by that, right? Instead of asking him an open question like that, she instead asked, does that mean that Trump is authoritarian? Because they have similar ways of communicating. And Ai Weiwei was smart enough not to take the bait, right? He was smart enough not to take the bait because he was never saying that Trump was an authoritarian. He was just making an observation about communication styles, right? Which doesn't necessarily mean that you're authoritarian. And keep in mind, guys, it's not like this guy is a fan of Trump or anything like that, or he's a Trump supporter. He's actually been somewhat critical of Trump on some things, right? For example, like the border wall. But yeah, he doesn't take the bait. And it sounds to me like he's saying, well, no, I don't think so. And part of the reason why is because there's a system that has to be put in place to actually be an authoritarian. One person can't be an authoritarian. He goes on to elaborate that in many cases, that's where we're at right now, right? Which is under Biden, right? We're currently under the Biden administration, not the Trump administration. With that being said, he's 100% spot on. And the reason why, guys, is because as much as the mainstream liberal media wants to paint Trump as the authoritarian, Trump, when he was actually in office, he had the opportunity to be an authoritarian because of the pandemic, and he simply chose not to, right? Matter of fact, the media criticized Trump for not being authoritarian enough, right? They criticized Trump because he didn't want to force people to wear a mask, right? They criticized Trump because he didn't want to force people to socially distance or to stay inside, right? He wanted to try to keep the economy open, and he got criticism for that, right? Because he wouldn't be an authoritarian. But they still continue to try to say that the guy was authoritarian when the prime opportunity to be an authoritarian was presented to him, and he just simply chose not to, right? However, with Biden in office, he has taken advantage of every opportunity to be authoritarian in the name of the pandemic. And you see this mainly when it comes to the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates, where an individual can lose their jobs and lose their livelihoods over personal medical decisions, right? In regards to vaccinations, where you can be denied entry into a business simply because you don't want to wear a mask. And this is policies that are being done not just from the Biden administration, but also in tandem with big business, right? With Wall Street, with corporate America, with big pharma. They're also on board with this. And I think that this is what Ai Weiwei is talking about when he says that you actually need a system. Okay, it just can't be one man. Right, what we're seeing right now under Biden administration is not just Biden trying to be an authoritarian when it comes to mandates. It's also the businesses going along with it, right? And it's not just the pandemic and the mandates where you're seeing this cooperation between big business and the government to enact an authoritarian state. You're also seeing it when it comes to censorship, specifically in regards to big tech, right? I've talked about this so much, about how the government is working hand in hand with big tech, well, mainly the Democrat Party, that is. The Republicans just do nothing to stop it, right? Because they're useless on this issue. But the Democrat Party that is running the government right now and big tech have worked hand in hand to censor speech, right? To censor speech that they don't like, mainly speech that doesn't align with the left-wing liberal narrative, right? And if it doesn't align with the left-wing liberal narrative, then it may be classified as hate speech, regardless of whether or not it is actually hate speech. And we've seen this happen so much, especially under the Biden administration, right? After January 6th, they ramped up censorship like crazy, right? I mean, this included banning the former president of the United States from communicating on their platforms, right? Along with a bunch of other figures who they deemed to be dangerous, right? AKA having speech that they don't necessarily like. That's the type of stuff that happens, guys, under authoritarian state. A state like China. Now, when it comes to the whole political correctness thing, again, it's the same thing. Where you have these places that are basically, again, censoring speech by saying that, hey, you must call somebody by a certain pronoun. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a story today about how a student got suspended because they refused to acknowledge people's pronouns and said there were only two genders. Right? Student got suspended for it. Well, why is that? Well, that's because it is a part of the new authoritarian state. where speech is censored in the name of political correctness, in the name of not hurting feelings. But it's really just an alignment towards a certain political ideology and a certain political party, mainly the Democrat Party. That's really what it is. And that's currently what we're saying today. And the worst part about this, guys, is that a large portion of the population goes along with this simply because they've been fear-mongered to from the liberal media about Trump for so long that they just believe that anything that the Biden administration does and that the government does is good so long as Trump's not doing it. Right? There's so many people in our society, guys, that have Trump derangement syndrome. Okay? And this Trump derangement syndrome, it's keeping them from seeing the reality of what's going on with the Biden administration. And that is really the worst part about all this, guys. Trump is simply a distraction, right? He's a distraction from the real issues that are happening and the failures of the Biden administration. And the mainstream liberal media knows that. That's why they continue to push Trump, January 6th, blah, 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 blah. Trump an authoritarian, Trump this, Trump that. They can't keep Trump's name out of their mouth because it serves as a distraction from what's going on in the Biden administration. For the life of me, I don't understand how anybody can call Trump an authoritarian and not put that same label on the Biden administration, because to me, they seem to have a lot more authoritarian tendencies than Trump. Because like I told you guys before, Trump had a prime opportunity to be an authoritarian and he simply chose not to when presented with the opportunity. However, because the establishment is against Trump, that's a component of why Trump probably is not authoritarian. Because he did not have a system behind him to allow him to do whatever he wanted. And that's how things are supposed to work, right? Now, it's not supposed to work in a way that it worked under Trump in the sense that the establishment pushed back against everything that he did, right? The establishment just hated him. But what I'm saying is that there has to be a system of checks and balances in place, and you can't just have all these entities going along with the same ideology, right? Because that is actually how you exert power, okay? And that's what's actually happening in the Biden administration. Everybody is going along with Biden, right? The establishment is going along with Biden. And when the establishment is going along with Biden, corporate America is going along with Biden, when all that stuff is working in tandem, that's how you exert power and control. Trump didn't have that, right? Trump didn't have that. Trump had everybody working against him. So again, to say that the man was an authoritarian or that we were an authoritarian state under Trump, I think it's just objectively false. We just weren't. We are a lot more like an authoritarian state now under the Biden administration than we were under Trump at any point. Any point whatsoever. Most of the authoritarianism in this country is literally coming from the left, right? A vast majority of it. And I just find it fascinating how you have all these Chinese, dissenters, political activists that we see all the time that come out here and tell us that, hey guys, the direction that the United States is moving in is not good, right? They're recognizing the early signs of the direction that we're headed in because they've been through it. They've been there, done that, so they know. But again, people on the right, we're paying attention to that, but people on the left, they can't see it because they've been blinded by Trump, right? This evil villain, okay? That's not even in office anymore. That the mainstream liberal media can't stop talking about for whatever reason, when we have much deeper issues at hand under the Biden administration. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.